Hello, everybody. My colleague Ritu and I have been talking about a crisis unfolding for women going through gray divorce, one that doesn't always announce itself loudly until it's too late. It's the gap between the enormous financial responsibility that's about to land on women's shoulders, whether they're ready or not, and the financial knowledge and confidence many women currently possess. That gap is significant. And for women emerging from a long marriage in which a husband handled the finances, it can feel overwhelming. Let me explain why this matters so much and what we can do about it. Here's something remarkable. Over the next several decades, we are going to witness what economists and financial planners are calling the Great Wealth Transfer. We're talking about an estimated 84 trillion in assets passing from baby boomer generation to their heirs and survivors. This is the largest intergenerational transfer of wealth in human history. And here's the part that doesn't get enough attention. A significant portion of that wealth, by some estimates the majority of it, is going to end up in the hands of women. Why? Well, partly because women outlive men, and we'll get to that in a minute. Partly because women are increasingly the beneficiaries of life insurance policies, retirement accounts, and estates. And partly because in many marriages the wife is simply younger than the husband and will survive him. So on one hand, this is an extraordinary opportunity. Women are poised to control more wealth than at any point in human history. On the other hand, there's a serious problem. Too many of the women who are about to inherit or assume control of that wealth are not financially prepared to manage it. And the gap between the money women are going to control and their current level of financial education is wide. In some cases, it's dangerously wide. Now, this isn't a criticism, it's a call to action. Let's talk about longevity for a moment, because it's central to everything we're discussing here. Women on average live 5 to 7 years longer than men. In practical financial terms, this means women need their money to last longer, a lot longer potentially. If you're a woman who's divorcing at 58, you may be looking at a retirement that spans 30 years or more, 3 decades of living expenses, healthcare costs, and inflation, 3 decades of needing your investment portfolio to work for you. Men face a long retirement too, of course, but statistically, women face a longer one. And yet, by many measures, women are less financially prepared for that extended runway. They tend to have accumulated less in retirement accounts, partly because of career interruptions for caregiving, partly because of the persistent gender wage gap, and their Social Security benefits tend to be lower for the same reasons. And here's where gray divorce makes this all the more acute. You came into this divorce with a certain set of assumptions about retirement, about what the nest egg looked like, about who was going to manage it, about what your lifestyle might be. Gray divorce disrupts all of that. It cuts the assets in half, and for women who've let their husband manage the investments and financial planning, it leaves them facing a very long financial horizon with very little preparation for managing it themselves. Whether through divorce, through the death of a spouse, or simply through the choice to remain or become single, the overwhelming majority of women will, at some point, be the sole person responsible for managing their financial lives, for managing their financial investments, their retirement income, their estate planning, and their tax strategy. And yet the research consistently shows that women, on average, have lower levels of financial literacy than men. These are patterns rooted in culture, in history, in the way boys and girls have traditionally been socialized differently around money. But patterns can be changed, and given what's coming, given the great wealth transfer and the longevity reality, they have to be. In our work as divorce financial analysts, we see a pattern come up again and again with women going through gray divorce, particularly those who've been in long marriages. She let him handle it. Not because she wasn't intelligent, not because she didn't care about money, but because over the course of a long marriage there's a natural division of labor that tends to emerge. He handled the investments and the financial planning. She managed the household, raised the children, supported his career, and perhaps built one of her own. Somewhere along the way, the finances became his domain. And this is a completely understandable dynamic. It's also one that gray divorce can expose in a painful and abrupt way. Suddenly, she's sitting across from a financial advisor or in my office, and we're talking about investment accounts, asset allocation, required minimum distributions, Social Security claiming strategies, capital gains, and tax-efficient withdrawal planning. And she's expected to make decisions that will define the rest of her financial life, often under enormous emotional stress, often in an accelerated time frame. It's a lot to absorb. I want to spend a moment on the research around the differences in financial knowledge between men and women because I think understanding the why is important before we address the what now. Research in behavioral finance and personality psychology suggests that there are real measurable differences in how men and women tend to approach money. Some of this comes back to personality. Studies show that women tend to experience financial stress and anxiety more acutely than men. And when anxiety runs high, the natural tendency is avoidance. Thinking about money feels threatening, so we think about it less. Men, by contrast, tend to score higher in traits associated with overconfidence. This may not surprise many of you, which in financial terms has its own downsides. But it does mean that men are more likely to engage actively with investments, take calculated risks, and make financial decisions with less hesitation. Now, neither approach is inherently superior. In fact, research shows that women who do engage with investing tend to be more disciplined, more patient, and ultimately more successful long-term investors than their male counterparts. The challenge for many women isn't ability, it's access, confidence, and habit. And that's exactly where financial coaching comes in. And I want to be clear, financial coaching is not the same thing as telling someone how to invest their money. That's financial advising, and it's also important. Financial coaching is the educational process of helping someone build the knowledge, confidence, and skills to understand their own financial life, to ask the right questions, and to evaluate their options. For a woman emerging from gray divorce, this education isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. And that's why my colleague Ritu and I built Financial Coaching for Women After Divorce, a 4-session, one-on-one program meant to take a woman from overwhelmed to organized, and from unsure to in control. We've kept the structure simple on purpose because clarity is the whole point. Each session builds on the one before it. Session 1, organize. Understand your assets, debts, ownership, beneficiaries, account titling, and the key financial documents that come into play after divorce. Session 2, stabilize. Build a realistic spending plan, review your income sources, set emergency fund goals, and address debt. Session 3, protect. Review beneficiary designations, estate planning documents, and your health, life, and long-term care coverage. Finally, Session 4, plan. Turn to the future, retirement, investments, Social Security, charity, and a complete, concrete action plan for the next stage of your life. By the end, you'll walk away with a full picture of your finances, a spending plan that fits your actual life, a clear list of what to tackle first, and a roadmap for what comes next. Not theory, something you can act on. Financial coaching is one of the most powerful tools available to women navigating gray divorce and its aftermath. Knowledge is power, confidence is earned through education and practice, and every woman deserves to enter the next chapter of her life with the tools to build on it on her own terms. That's not just a financial goal, that's a life goal. and it's one absolutely worth pursuing. Until next time, take care, everybody.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Grey Divorce Podcast. To learn more or get in contact with your host, you can visit Andrew's website at transcendretirement.net. Also, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Information provided is educational only and should not be construed as legal or tax advice. Each situation is unique and should be discussed with your tax or legal advisor prior to implementation. Andrew Hatherley is not an attorney and does not provide legal advice. Information provided is financial in nature. Advisory services offered through Hatherley Capital Management, LLC. Divorce financial analysis services offered through Wiser Divorce Solutions, an affiliated company.